The quiet neighborhood of Pine Hills wasn't known for much. Small houses lined the cracked sidewalks, and most folks worked long hours just to keep food on the table. Among these hard-working people was Ms. Jackson and her 16-year-old son, Tyrell. Tyrell was a slender boy with bright eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. He wasn't the tallest kid in his class, nor the most outspoken, but there was something about the way he carried himself, a quiet confidence that came from somewhere deep within. Every morning, Tyrell would wake up before sunrise to help his mom prepare for the day. Ms. Jackson worked 2 jobs, one at the local hospital as a cleaner during the day, and another at a 24-hour diner in the evenings. Life wasn't easy, but they made it work. "Remember to lock up when you leave," Ms. Jackson would say each morning, planting a quick kiss on Tyrell's forehead. "And stay out of trouble on your way home." "Yes, Mama," Tyrell would reply with a small smile, knowing full well he wasn't the kind to go looking for problems. What most people in Pine Hills didn't know about Tyrell was that behind his quiet demeanor lay years of dedicated training. Since he was 7 years old, Tyrell had been studying karate at a community center downtown. Mr. Lee, his instructor, had taken Tyrell under his wing when he noticed the boy watching classes through the window, too shy to come inside. "You want to learn?" Mr. Lee had asked him all those years ago. Tyrell had nodded, eyes wide with hope. "Then come. But understand this, what I teach is not for fighting. It is for discipline, for respect, for protection only when there is no other choice." For 9 years, Tyrell had lived by those words. 3 nights a week, while his mother worked her second job, he would train until his muscles ached and sweat dripped from his chin. The community center became his second home, and Mr. Lee something of a father figure. "Breathe from here," Mr. Lee would often say, pointing to his belly. "Power comes from the center, not from anger." Tyrell's dedication had paid off. For the past 3 years, he had competed in the state karate championships, bringing home gold, medals that his mother proudly displayed on their living room shelf. Yet at school, few knew of his accomplishments. Tyrell kept to himself, focusing on his studies and avoiding the attention that sometimes came with success. The walk home from Westside High took Tyrell about 30 minutes. He preferred the longer route through the neighborhood park. It was peaceful there, with old oak trees providing shade and a small pond where ducks gathered. This particular Monday afternoon in October was crisp, with leaves crunching under his worn sneakers as he walked. Tyrell had his earbuds in, listening to a history podcast for an upcoming test, when he sensed rather than saw movement to his right. Looking up, he noticed 3 boys leaning against the park fence. He recognized them immediately. They attended Eastside High, the rival school across town. They'd hassled him once before, calling out insults as he passed, but Tyrell had simply kept walking that day. Today felt different. The way they straightened up when they spotted him, the deliberate manner in which they spread out to block his path. It made the hair on the back of Tyrell's neck stand up. "Hey, smart guy," called out the tallest one, a heavy-set boy with a red hoodie. Everyone knew him as Big Ray. "Got a minute?" Tyrell paused the podcast and removed one earbud, keeping his expression neutral. "I'm just heading home." That's cool," said Big Ray, stepping closer. His 2 friends flanked him, one tall and lanky, the other short but muscular. "We're just looking to have a friendly conversation." Tyrell felt his heartbeat quicken but kept his breathing steady, just as Mr. Lee had taught him. "What about?" "You see," Big Ray continued, moving closer until he was just a few feet away. "Me and my boys, we're collecting donations for a good cause." The short, muscular boy snickered, cracking his knuckles. "And what cause is that?" Tyrell asked calmly, though he already knew where this was heading. "The Stay Safe in the Park Fund," Big Ray replied with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. $20 guarantees you can walk through here without any problems. It's like insurance, you know?" Tyrell glanced around. The park was mostly empty at this hour, with just an elderly man walking his dog in the distance. He could run, but something in him refused to be intimidated. "I don't have $20, he said truthfully. Most of the money he earned from weekend work at the grocery store went straight to helping with bills at home. "That's too bad," Big Ray said, his smile fading. Maybe that nice phone of yours could cover it instead. The phone had been a gift from his uncle last Christmas. Nothing fancy, but it was how he kept in touch with his mom during her long work hours. I need my phone, Tyrell said, his voice still level but firm. I use it to check on my mom. The three boys exchanged glances, apparently surprised by his calm refusal. You hear this kid? The lanky one said, acting all brave and stuff. Big Ray's expression darkened. I don't think you understand how this works. You give us what we ask for or things get uncomfortable. Tyrell took a deep breath, centering himself as Mr. Lee had taught him. 9 years of training had prepared him for moments like this, though he had always hoped they would never come. His mother's voice echoed in his head. Stay out of trouble. But sometimes trouble found you no matter how hard you tried to avoid it. I understand perfectly, Tyrell replied, shifting his weight almost imperceptibly. But I'm going to have to say no. The boys looked at each other, clearly not expecting this response from someone they saw as an easy target. In their eyes, Tyrell was just a quiet kid who kept to himself, someone who would hand over his belongings without a fight. They had no idea that beneath his unassuming exterior was a state karate champion who had spent most of his life learning the art of self-defense. Tyrell didn't want to fight, but as the three boys began to close in around him, he knew that sometimes peace required strength, and strength was something Tyrell Jackson had in abundance. Big Ray stepped forward, his shadow falling across Tyrell's face. I don't think you understand the situation here, he said, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Nobody says no to us, especially not in our park. The three boys had formed a tight circle around Tyrell now. The short, muscular one, everyone called him Tank, moved closer on the right while the tall, lanky boy known as Stretch blocked the path behind him. There was nowhere to run, even if Tyrell had wanted to. Look, Tyrell said, keeping his voice steady. I told you I don't have any money and I need my phone. Let's just forget about this and go our separate ways. Big Ray laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's not how this works. You're on our turf now. He reached out and shoved Tyrell's shoulder hard. Maybe you need to learn some respect. Tyrell absorbed the push without stumbling, his feet automatically shifting into a more stable stance. A movement so subtle the bullies didn't even notice. 9 years of training had made certain reactions second nature. I respect people who earn it, Tyrell replied quietly, not people who try to take what isn't theirs. The words hung in the air for a moment. Then Tank snorted and stepped forward. Big talk from someone about to get hurt. Tyrell took a deep breath, remembering Mr. Lee's words. The first victory is to avoid the fight altogether. He decided to try one more time. My mom's waiting for me to get home, he said. She'll be worried if I'm late. I don't want any trouble. Should have thought about that before you came through our park. Big Ray sneered. He glanced at his friends. Check. His backpack, let's see what else he's got. Stretch moved forward and grabbed the strap of Tyrell's backpack, yanking it roughly. Hand it over, smart guy. Something shifted in Tyrell's expression. Not fear, but focus. As Stretch pulled at his backpack, Tyrell let his body move the way it had been trained, pivoting slightly to maintain his balance while allowing the backpack to slide off one shoulder. Come on, man, Tyrell said, his voice still calm despite the pounding of his heart. There's nothing in there but school books. We'll be the judge of that, Big Ray said with a smirk. He nodded to Tank. Hold him. Tank lunged forward, meaty hands outstretched to grab Tyrell's arms. This was the moment when Tyrell had to make a choice. Allow himself to be held and possibly beaten, or use the skills he had spent years developing. In that split second, he remembered his mother's face, how hard she worked, how proud she was of him. He thought of Mr. Lee and all the lessons about using karate as a last resort. This was that last resort. As Tank's hands reached for him, Tyrell sidestepped with a fluid motion that seemed impossibly fast. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. Tank's momentum carried him forward into empty space, throwing him off balance. What the? Tank began but didn't finish. With movements that were purely defensive, Tyrell redirected Tank's forward energy using the bigger boy's weight against him. A simple turn of the body, a shift of the foot, and suddenly Tank was stumbling past him, nearly crashing into Big Ray. The looks of surprise on their faces might have been comical in another situation. They clearly hadn't expected any resistance, let alone skillful evasion. "Dude can move," Stretch muttered, still holding Tyrell's backpack. Big Ray's face darkened with anger. "So what? There's 3 of us and 1 of him." He shoved Tank aside. "Don't just stand there looking stupid, get him." This time they came at him together, Tank and Big Ray charging from the front while Stretch circled to grab him from behind. Tyrell felt time seemed to slow, just like it did during competitions. His body knew what to do before his mind could even process it. Years of muscle memory taking over. He pivoted away from Big Ray's wild swing, ducked under Tank's grabbing arms, and used a simple palm strike to create space. Not to hurt, just to keep them at bay. When Stretch grabbed him from behind, Tyrell used a basic karate technique, dropping his weight slightly and turning to break the hold. The 3 bullies found themselves facing a very different opponent than they had expected. Instead of a scared kid ready to hand over his belongings, they faced someone who moved like water, flowing around their attacks without seeming to try. "What kind of kung fu nonsense is this?" Big Ray spat, breathing heavily already. "It's karate," Tyrell corrected him calmly, settling back into a neutral stance. "And I don't want to fight you. Just give me back my backpack and we can all walk away." Tank, rubbing his wrist where Tyrell had broken his grip, looked uncertain now. "Dude, maybe we should—" "Shut up," Big Ray snapped. "I'm not letting some kid show us up in our own park." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something that caught the late afternoon sunlight. A small pocket knife. Tyrell felt his stomach tighten. This was getting dangerous, but he kept his expression neutral. Mr. Lee had trained him for situations like this too. "A weapon shows fear, not strength," he would say. "It means you don't trust in yourself." "You really want to take this that far?" Tyrell asked quietly, his eyes never leaving the knife. Before Big Ray could answer, a voice called out from across the park. "Hey, what's going on over there?" They all turned to see an older man approaching quickly, Mr. Wilson, who lived in the blue house at the corner and walked his golden retriever in the park every afternoon. The dog was barking now, pulling at its leash as if sensing the tension. "Everything okay here?" Mr. Wilson called, his pace quickening. Big Ray hesitated, looking from Tyrell to the approaching man and back again. After a moment, he closed the knife and shoved it back in his pocket. "This isn't over," he muttered. Stretch tossed Tyrell's backpack to the ground. "We'll see you around, Karate Kid." The 3 bullies backed away, trying to look casual as Mr. Wilson drew closer. Big Ray pointed at Tyrell. "Remember what I said. This isn't over." Then they turned and walked quickly across the park toward the street, occasionally glancing back over their shoulders. Tyrell let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. That had been close. Too close. He picked up his backpack, checking to make sure nothing had fallen out. "You all right, son?" Mr. Wilson asked as he reached Tyrell, his dog sniffing curiously at Tyrell's shoes. "Yes, sir, thank you," Tyrell replied, managing a small smile. "Just a disagreement. Nothing serious." Mr. Wilson's eyes narrowed as he watched the retreating figures of the bullies. "Those boys giving you trouble? I can call someone if you need help." "No, that's okay," Tyrell said. "I think they're gone now." But even as he spoke, he knew Big Ray was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Tyrell walked the rest of the way home with quick steps, his mind replaying the confrontation in the park. His hands were steady, but a knot had formed in his stomach. He'd never had to use his karate skills outside the dojo before. Mr. Lee always emphasized that true victory came from avoiding conflict altogether. When he reached the small yellow house he shared with his mother, Tyrell went straight to his room and dropped his backpack on the bed. He sat down beside it, taking deep breaths the way Mr. Lee had taught him. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. The tension in his shoulders began to ease, but the worry remained. What would happen tomorrow? Big Ray's final words echoed in his mind. This isn't over. Tyrell changed out of his school clothes and went to the kitchen to start dinner. Cooking was another skill he'd developed over the years. With his mom working late most evenings, he'd learned to prepare meals for both of them. Tonight, he decided on spaghetti, something simple that would keep well until she got home around midnight. As he stirred the sauce, his phone buzzed with a text. It was from his friend Dion. "Yo, you okay? Heard there was trouble at the park." Tyrell frowned. News traveled fast in their neighborhood. Too fast sometimes. He typed back, "I'm fine. Who told you?" The reply came quickly. "Mr. Wilson told my dad. Said you handled yourself well." Tyrell put the phone down and returned to his cooking. He didn't want word of this spreading, especially not to his mother. She had enough to worry about without adding this to her plate. By 7 o'clock, Tyrell had finished his homework and was getting ready for karate class. Tuesday nights were advanced training with Mr. Lee, and despite the day's events, or maybe because of them, Tyrell felt he needed the calm focus of the dojo more than ever. The community center was a 15-minute walk from his house. As he approached the old brick building, Tyrell felt some of his worry lift. This place had been his sanctuary for 9 years. Inside these walls, he knew exactly who he was and what was expected of him. "You are late," Mr. Lee said when Tyrell entered the training room. The older man didn't look up from where he was adjusting a younger student's stance. "Sorry, sir," Tyrell replied, bowing slightly before hurrying to the changing room. When he returned in his GI, the class was already warming up. Tyrell took his place at the back and joined the exercises, his body falling into the familiar rhythms. Stretch, breathe, hold, release. The movements were simple but required complete focus, leaving no room for distracting thoughts. After warm-ups, Mr. Lee divided the class for sparring practice. He paired Tyrell with Lee, another advanced student, who had competed at the state level. They bowed to each other and began to circle, looking for openings. As they sparred, Tyrell found his mind drifting back to the park, to the fear he'd felt when Big Ray pulled out the knife. His concentration broke for just a moment, but a moment was all Lee needed. A swift kick caught Tyrell off guard, sending him stumbling backward. "Focus, Tyrell," Mr. Lee called from across the room. "Your mind is elsewhere today." Tyrell nodded, centering himself again. He and Lee resumed their match, but after a few more exchanges, Mr. Lee clapped his hands. "Enough." Water break. As the other students moved to the side of the room, Mr. Lee motioned for Tyrell to follow him to his small office. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair while he took the one behind his desk. "Now tell me what is troubling you." Tyrell hesitated. "Nothing, sir. I just had a long day at school." Mr. Lee's eyes, sharp despite his 60-plus years, studied Tyrell's face. 9 years I have trained you, and still you think you can hide things from me?" He shook his head. "Your body speaks even when your mouth does not. Something happened today." With a sigh, Tyrell told him about the confrontation in the park, the 3 boys, their demands, how he'd tried to walk away, and finally, how he'd used his training to defend himself. Mr. Lee listened without interruption, his expression unchanging. When Tyrell finished, including the part about the knife, the older man closed his eyes briefly. "You had no choice but to defend yourself," he said at last. "Did you injure any of them?" "No, sir," Tyrell replied. "I just created space and redirected their movements, like you taught us." A ghost of a smile touched Mr. Lee's lips. "Good. To hurt when there is no need shows lack of control." He leaned forward slightly. "But a knife changes things. If they confront you again with weapons, you run. Do you understand? There is no shame in retreat when facing such odds." "Yes, sir," Tyrell said, though the thought of running didn't sit well with him. "Your mother does not know of this?" Tyrell shook his head. "I don't want her to worry. She works so hard already." Mr. Lee considered this, then nodded slowly. "I understand. But if these boys continue to cause trouble, she must be told. Your safety comes first." He stood up. Now, return to class. But today, I want you to focus on control exercises. Center yourself. Find your balance. As he left Mr. Lee's office, Terrell felt somewhat lighter. Sharing the burden had helped, and Mr. Lee's calm reaction reassured him that he'd handled the situation properly. The rest of the class passed quickly as Tyrell worked through the control exercises, movements designed to build precision and restraint rather than power. By the time class ended, his mind felt clearer. As he was changing back into his street clothes, his phone buzzed again. A new text from Dion. "Check TikTok. Video of you and those East Side guys is going around." Terrell's stomach dropped. He quickly opened the app and saw that he had several notifications. With a growing sense of dread, he tapped on the first one. The video was shaky but clear enough. It showed the last part of the confrontation, him evading Tank's grab, deflecting Big Ray's punch, breaking free from Stretch's hold. The clip ended, with Mr. Wilson approaching and the three bullies backing away. The caption read, "East Side boys picked the wrong target today. Kids got moves." Tyrell stared at the screen in disbelief. Someone must have been walking through the park and recorded the whole thing without him noticing. The video already had hundreds of views and dozens of comments. Who is that kid? Those East Side boys always causing trouble. Dude moves like he's in a movie. As he scrolled through the comments, another text came through. This one from a number he didn't recognize. "This ain't over, karate boy. Nobody makes us look bad and gets away with it." Tyrell looked up from his phone, his heart racing again. The confrontation in the park had been just the beginning. Now that the video was out there, things were about to get a lot more complicated. The next morning, Tyrell woke up before his alarm. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts about the video and that threatening text. As he got ready for school, he checked his phone again. The video had now been viewed thousands of times. "You okay, baby?" his mother asked as he picked at his breakfast. Ms. Jackson had come home late from her shift at the diner and was already dressed for her day job at the hospital. Dark circles under her eyes spoke of her exhaustion, but her gaze was sharp as ever when it came to her son. "I'm fine, Mama. Just thinking about a test today," Tyrell lied. He hated not telling her the truth, but the last thing she needed was more worry. She kissed the top of his head as she grabbed her purse. "You'll do great, you always do. There's leftover chicken in the fridge for dinner. I won't be home till late again." As she headed for the door, Tyrell called after her, "Mama?" She turned, eyebrows raised in question. "I love you," he said, simply. Her tired face softened into a smile. "Love you too, baby. More than you know." After she left, Tyrell sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at his phone. Part of him wanted to stay home to avoid whatever might be waiting for him at school, but that wasn't how he'd been raised. His mother never ran from her responsibilities, no matter how tired she was. He wouldn't run from his. The walk to school felt longer than usual. Every shadow, every passing car made him tense up. But nothing happened. No sign of Big Ray or his friends. That changed the moment he stepped into the school building. "There he is. That's him from the video." "Did you really take on 3 guys from East Side?" Suddenly, Terrell was surrounded by classmates, some he barely knew, all talking at once. He kept his head down, pushing gently through the crowd until he felt a hand on his shoulder. "Give the man some space," came Dion's familiar voice. His friend steered him through the crowd toward their lockers. "This is crazy," Terrell muttered once they had a moment alone. "How did this blow up so fast?" Dion shook his head. "Are you kidding? Those East Side boys have been terrorizing kids from our school for months. Seeing someone stand up to them is like, I don't know, seeing someone stand up to the final boss in a video game." "I didn't want any of this attention," Tyrell said, opening his locker. A small piece of paper fell out. A note scrawled in messy handwriting. "Nice moves yesterday. Karate Club meets Thursdays after school if you're interested. Coach Wilson." Tyrell stared at the note. He'd had no idea Westside even had a karate club. "What's that?" Dion asked, peering over his shoulder. Before Tyrell could answer, the first period bell rang. Tell you later, he said, shoving the note in his pocket. Throughout the morning, Tyrell could feel eyes on him. People who had never spoken to him before stopped him in the hallway to ask about the video. Teachers gave him curious looks. By lunchtime, he was exhausted from the attention. He was heading to his usual quiet corner of the cafeteria when Ms. Thompson, the vice principal, intercepted him. "Tyrell, can I see you in my office for a moment?" His heart sank. Was he in trouble? He followed her to the administrative wing where she showed him into her office and closed the door. "Have a seat," she said, settling behind her desk. "I assume you know why I've called you in." Tyrell nodded reluctantly. "The video." "Yes, the video." Ms. Thompson folded her hands on her desk. "I need to hear your side of what happened yesterday at Pine Hills Park." Taking a deep breath, Tyrell told her everything. How the three boys had tried to take his money and phone, how he'd tried to walk away, and how he'd defended himself when they wouldn't let him go. He left out the part about the knife, not wanting to escalate things further. When he finished, Ms. Thompson was quiet for a moment. "I've spoken with Principal Davis at Eastside. He's concerned about the situation as well. Those three students have a history of similar incidents." "Am I in trouble?" Tyrell asked quietly. Ms. Thompson's expression softened slightly. "No, Tyrell. From what I can see in the video and from what Mr. Wilson reported, you defended yourself appropriately, but I am concerned about that text you received. Have there been others?" Tyrell shook his head. "Just the one." "Well, we're taking this seriously," she said. "Both schools are. Principal Davis has called the parents of those three boys in for a meeting tomorrow morning. We'd like you to attend as well." Tyrell felt his stomach drop. "Will my mom need to come?" Ms. Thompson nodded. "Yes, we'll need a parent or guardian present." That meant telling his mother everything. Tyrell's shoulders lumped. "I understand this is difficult," Ms. Thompson said gently, "but it's important we address this properly before it escalates further. I've already left a message for your mother asking her to call me back." Tyrell nodded, his mind racing. His mother would be disappointed that he'd kept this from her. And missing work for a meeting would mean lost wages they couldn't afford. "Can I go now?" he asked. "Yes, but Tyrell," she added as he stood, "you should know that many of the staff here are impressed with how you handled yourself. Not just during the incident, but today as well. That's not easy for anyone, let alone someone your age." Her words should have made him feel better, but all Tyrell could think about was his mother's face when she found out what had happened. The rest of the school day passed in a blur. After the final bell, Tyrell headed straight to the community center for his Wednesday training session. He needed the calm focus of the dojo more than ever. Mr. Lee was already there when he arrived, supervising the younger students' class. He nodded to Tyrell, a silent acknowledgement that spoke volumes. News traveled fast, and Mr. Lee seemed to already know about the video's spread. After changing into his GI, Tyrell began his warm-up exercises in the corner of the room. As he moved through the familiar forms, he felt some of the day's tension begin to ease. "Your mother called me," Mr. Lee said quietly, appearing beside him. Tyrell stumbled slightly in his movements. "She knows?" Mr. Lee nodded. "The school reached out to her. She was concerned. I explained that you had told me about the incident, that you had defended yourself appropriately." "Is she angry?" Tyrell asked, dreading the answer. "No," Mr. Lee said. "Worried, yes. But proud too, I think." He placed a hand on Tyrell's shoulder. "She asked if I would accompany you both to the meeting tomorrow. I said yes." Relief washed over Tyrell. Having Mr. Lee there would make everything easier to explain. "Thank you," he said simply. Mr. Lee squeezed his shoulder once, then stepped back. "Now focus on your training. Tomorrow will take care of itself." As Tyrell resumed his exercises, his phone buzzed in his bag across the room. Another message, maybe from his mother, or worse, from Big Ray. For now, though, Tyrell let it wait. Here in the dojo he could find his center again. Here he knew exactly who he was and what he was capable of. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. The meeting with the school administrators, facing Big Ray and his friends again, explaining everything to his mother. But tonight, he would prepare himself the only way he knew how, through the discipline and focus that had carried him through 9 years of training. Whatever came next, he would face it with the same calm strength he'd shown in the park. Not because he wanted to fight, but because sometimes standing your ground was the only way to find true peace. The morning of the meeting arrived too quickly. Tyrell sat at the kitchen table dressed in his best button-up shirt and khaki pants, pushing cereal around his bowl. Across from him, his mother sipped her coffee in silence. They had talked late, into the night after she'd come home from work, really talked in a way they hadn't in a long time. "I wish you had told me," she'd said, her voice more sad than angry. "You don't have to handle everything alone, baby." Now, as she set down her mug, she reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "It's going to be okay. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I just wish you hadn't felt you needed to hide it from me." "I didn't want you to worry," Tyrell said quietly. "You have enough on your plate." Ms. Jackson shook her head. "That's not how family works. Your problems are my problems. We face things together." A knock at the door interrupted them. Mr. Lee had arrived to drive them to Eastside High, where the meeting would take place. The ride was mostly silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Principal Winter's office at Eastside was larger than Ms. Thompson's at Westside, with awards and sports trophies lining the shelves. When Tyrell entered with his mother and Mr. Lee, several people were already there. Ms. Thompson from Westside, Principal Winters from Eastside, and 3 sets of parents, with their sons, Big Ray, Tank, and Stretch, sitting uncomfortably in a row of chairs. Big Ray wouldn't meet Tyrell's eyes. Tank stared at the floor. Only Stretch glanced up briefly as they entered, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Jackson, Tyrell," Principal Winters said, gesturing to the empty chairs. "And you must be Mr. Lee?" Mr. Lee bowed slightly. "I am Tyrell's karate instructor. I am here at Ms. Jackson's request." Once everyone was seated, Principal Winters cleared his throat. "We're here to address a serious situation that occurred between students of our 2 schools. I've reviewed the video footage, spoken with Mr. Wilson, who witnessed part of the incident, and heard from the students involved, but I think it's important we all hear directly from each other." He turned to Tyrell. "Would you please share your account of what happened in the park?" Taking a deep breath, Tyrell told his story once more. This time he included the part about the knife, feeling it was important the adults knew how dangerous the situation had become. As he spoke, he felt his mother tense beside him. When he finished, Principal Winters turned to the 3 boys. "Do any of you wish to dispute Tyrell's account?" The boys exchanged glances. Finally, Big Ray spoke up, his voice quieter than Tyrell had ever heard it. "No, sir, that's what happened." "Raymond," Big Ray's father said sharply, "you pulled a knife on another student?" Big Ray hunched his shoulders. "It was just to scare him." "There is no just about it," his father said, his face tight with anger and shame. "We've talked about this." Principal Winters let the moment hang there before speaking again. "This kind of behavior cannot and will not be tolerated. Raymond, Antonio, David, you 3 have been involved in multiple incidents this year alone. This goes beyond simple bullying into criminal behavior." "Are you pressing charges?" Tank's mother asked, her voice shaking slightly. Ms. Jackson spoke up for the first time. "I don't want to press charges." She looked at the 3 boys. "What I want is for this to stop, not just with my son but with everyone. These boys need help, not punishment that won't teach them anything." Principal Winters nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, Ms. Jackson. However, there must be consequences." He turned to the 3 boys and their parents. "All 3 of you are suspended for 2 weeks. During that time, you will attend daily counseling sessions here at school. You will also complete community service at the Pine Hills Community Center." At this, Mr. Lee raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Additionally, Principal Winters continued, "You will each write a formal apology to Tyrell and to your own parents. And Raymond, because you escalated the situation with a weapon, You will be required to attend a juvenile intervention program with the local police department. Big Ray's father nodded grimly. He'll be there, and he'll be grounded until summer. The meeting continued with paperwork signed and arrangements made for the boys' suspension and counseling. Throughout it all, Tyrell remained quiet, watching the three boys who had seemed so threatening just days before. Now they looked smaller somehow, shoulders slumped under the weight of their parents' disappointment. As the meeting wrapped up, Ms. Thompson turned to Tyrell. You don't need to return to school today if you don't want to. Take the day, process everything. Tyrell shook his head. No, ma'am. I'd rather go to class. His mother smiled at him, pride evident in her eyes. As everyone began to file out of the office, Big Ray suddenly stopped in front of Tyrell. His parents paused by the door, watching, carefully. I'm sorry, Big Ray said, his voice just above a whisper. For real. What I did, it wasn't right. Tyrell studied him for a moment, then nodded. I accept your apology. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. That would take time. But it was a start. 2 weeks later, Tyrell was helping Mr. Lee set up for the younger kids' class when a familiar figure appeared at the door of the community center. Big Ray stood there, looking uncertain, dressed in sweats and a t-shirt. Can I help you? Mr. Lee asked. I'm supposed to do my community service here, Big Ray said, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. The lady at the front desk said to find Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee nodded. Ah, yes. We were told to expect you. He gestured to a closet at the far end of the room. There are mops and cleaning supplies in there. The floors need washing before the children arrive. Big Ray nodded and headed for the closet. As he passed Tyrell, he paused. Hey, Tyrell replied cautiously. That stuff you did in the park? The karate moves. That was pretty cool. Big Ray hesitated, then added, Do you think, could someone like me ever learn that? Tyrell glanced at Mr. Lee, who was watching the exchange with interest. It's not about the moves, Tyrell said slowly. Mr. Lee always says karate begins and ends with respect, for yourself and for others. Big Ray thought about that for a moment. Yeah, I get that. I got a lot to learn about respect. The beginner class meets on Mondays and Wednesdays, Mr. Lee said suddenly. After you complete your community service hours, if you are interested. A flash of something like hope crossed Big Ray's face. Really? You'd let me join? Everyone deserves a chance to change their path, Mr. Lee said simply. As Big Ray went to get the mop, Tyrell felt a strange sense of coming full circle. The boy who had threatened him was now cleaning the floors of the place that had given Tyrell his strength. Not just physical strength, but the inner strength to stand up for himself, while still offering compassion to those who had wronged him. His mother had been right. Some problems were too big to handle alone. But with the right support, family, mentors, even former enemies turned potential allies, there was always a path forward. Tyrell picked up a broom and began sweeping alongside Big Ray. They worked in silence, but it was no longer the silence of fear or anger. It was the silence of new beginnings, of stories yet to be written.